Hi guys, welcome to the show. I'm Tom Lillywhite. This week I'll be hosting the podcast, interviewing Strang.
Hello.
Just tell me about yourself.
Well, I'm from Colchester, in Essex. Probably Britain's oldest recorded town.
Definitely.
Yeah. It's a town I've lived in now for nearly 25 years, and I love it. I would say, a lot of the stuff I put out is probably political. Well, okay. Vast majority is probably political. Run a political page on Facebook to some success for now. But also do the podcasts. And, I thought this week it would be a good idea if I was the guest. This is the last episode in this series. It's been a lot of fun doing it, but to be honest, I realised a lot of podcasts usually have a host you know something about already. They're pretty well established already.
It's just starting off.
Well, that's the thing. But, people, unless they sort of follow the page, which again is limited really to... People are not likely to know all that much about me. Unless they've, followed stuff I've done or whatever.
Going back, I think it's fair enough that it's political at the moment, obviously.
Yes, with the general election and everything, and we are recording this on election day, which is what it feels very weird.
It does,
the energy today.
Have you voted?
I have voted.
I have yet to. Yeah, I'm on my way to work.
Okay, you've got... God, how long have you got?
Yeah.
4 hours to go
right,
until the polls close. To be fair, I'm pretty disappointed.
In what?
I think the bar was set way too high for this election. So I wrote a sort of a piece about this recently, just about how weird and just kind of Kafka-esque some elements of this election have been.
Well, the fact that it's third election in matter of...
It's third election
years.
Third election in a year. We had the locals, then the EU elections that we weren't supposed to be having, and then this one, and for all we know, tonight could end in a hung parliament, and we could be right back here in less than a year, like 1974 territory, and to be honest. I'm not getting the sense of closure that one would have hoped for with this election. There still feels like there's unfinished business. I mean, most people have been playing it pretty safe.
No matter who goes through.
I just think the issue, the issue with Brexit is so much bigger than any one of the parties. And then you have, a government's only for 5 years at a time. Right. We then have the process after this withdrawal bill, or so say Boris gets his majority today, and the withdrawal bill goes through. Then starts a period of negotiations discussing free trade, obviously with the European Union and then with other countries around the world, and there's still so much still has to be discussed and scrutinised. If after 5 years that another election will come along, and let's say
if not sooner.
Well, exactly, and let's say a new government takes its place, then this could all be thrown open again, and I do worry about people's interest in politics just completely diminishing because of this.
Oh, it has definitely during this whole thing.
I think we're going to get a high turnout today, regardless.
Yeah.
Even in the winter,
both sides.
I don't think it's deterred
angry.
anyone. Yes, absolutely. The amount of emotion on all sides about this one. And to be honest, it's not likely to go away. After this election.
True. Yeah, it's not going to solve everything, is it? No matter who gets.
Well, I think it might. There's some things we can actually move forward with, but then look, the issue with Brexit is. For better or worse, a government role. The role of, bringing the United Kingdom back together is something we all have to do. All something we have to be involved in because we're all accountable. And, to go back to what you asked me at the beginning of the show, tell me more about yourself.
Mm.
I think this is the thing. I got involved in politics sort of about 4 or 5 years ago now. And, over that amount of time, my opinions on certain things have changed. I feel I've actually found, because this is what I'm trying to encourage people to do. I say the role of whatever I do, the page or the podcast in some way, it's not exclusive to politics. It's encouraging people to get involved in the conversation somehow. Well, at least that's my intention. But not just that, to maybe consider different perspectives, and to try to report, the news honestly and impartially. So, for instance, yes, I will, put pieces up that are that I will routinely put my own opinion out there on my page. And I'm quite upfront about doing that. I have certain opinions that I'm not ashamed of, around things like, Brexit, freedom of speech, and economics. And I will put that stuff up. But then there'll be other times where I try to be as balanced as possible. So the interviews I did recently.
I think you have to, really.
Well, yeah, exactly. Because I sat down with the interviewees, the candidates, the local candidates. And I decided, even though there were things that some of them said that, I disagreed with, I wasn't confrontational. I mean, that wouldn't have been wise anyway. I'm, quite inexperienced. So getting too confrontational on a very early interview that you've managed to secure, probably wouldn't go your way.
No.
But yeah, those kind of things... The reason I made those videos, certain other things that I post, the consider this segment that I try to do, where I try to, give literally two different opposing viewpoints on the same issue. And I guess it all started because I absolutely love reading. Reading is this kind of culture that's dying out at the moment.
I mean, look at libraries these days.
Well, yes,
no one ever goes.
Well, you look at the libraries that are still open.
Which ones?
But then again, that's our responsibility. So that brings me back to the core thing here. What I advocate more than anything else is personal responsibility. That's responsibility for your opinions, to not necessarily follow the masses, to have open and frank conversations with people, to be respectful to people, even if you...
Even though you have different political...
Exactly. Political
views.
Or non-political.
Yeah. Religious.
You like a film that I don't like. We're not
do actually get quite heated about
we do
that.
Get quite heated about that. That's a bad example. But but we do it in that way that's, no, actually that's another thing. A bit of healthy spirited debate, passionate debate is good. When it's a little bit heated, but there's still that respect there. Yeah. Because like you and I, we could debate round and round about a particular film or something, and we absolutely do. But there's still that we both listening to each other because we both value the opinion.
And we disagree with each other on quite a lot. I mean, films generally, not, but with political views.
But this is the thing, it's getting quite concerning because of things we're seeing like cancel culture, where it's, not only are your views incorrect by default or morally inferior by default, but they're not worth hearing at all, so we're not going to let you. And that's something we're going into really scary territory when we get to that point. And this is what I'd say my core mission is. I'm trying to encourage debate, but also a certain type of debate. I've organised things in the past as well. I had for a limited amount of time, I would like to get it up and going again. A sort of think tank, non-partisan discussion group, in order just to talk about things and just throw around ideas and not be confrontational. We really have to up the game in talking about stuff, and there's going to be uncomfortable stuff that we need to talk about.
It always gets heated with politics, really.
Yeah. And sometimes for good reason.
Yeah.
But I don't think getting over emotional, hysterical, is ever a good idea when you're talking about something serious. And this is what I'm trying to advocate here, just moderation in things.
So we'll talk about politics.
Yeah.
Have you got any other projects going on, not to do with politics?
Well, this is the thing, the podcast, these podcasts are not political. So part of me is thinking now, after this first series is done, that I should separate this out somehow from maybe the political side of things. Maybe a separate page or something like that. Working on a book at the moment.
Right.
Hopefully I'll have something in 2020 to show. But I can't make any promises. Less
George R.
R. Martin myself, exactly.
How many are on, George?
No, I'd say sort of 2/3 of the way there.
Okay, not bad.
But this is the thing. At this point down the line, you start to have You start to seriously question the plot and everything like that. And but that's good. That's good. The book itself is a kind of. It is very political. It's also a lot about philosophy, about myth, and about our kind of connection to myth. It is set in a kind of a version of the UK, probably not that much unlike our own.
Like an alternative.
It is kind of alternative, yeah, because basically the main difference is in this, it's the UK, except it's all split into city-states like ancient Greece, like polises.
Right, I see, yeah.
So, and each one of those little city-states has their own defining ideology and their own, system of government, their own, or whatever. And of course it's a kind of journey throughout those for the main character, throughout those different city-states, and encounters with sort of different ideas and things like that. Yeah, it's kind of a dystopian novel, but it has kind of elements of fantasy.
Sounds like it, yeah.
And, it kind of the absurd. Not in a magical kind of way, really. It's difficult to explain.
Sounds it.
But, it hits upon sort of various different things that we're dealing with now, including things like identity politics, and the kind of madness of crowds, really. Yeah, I wrote my first book when I was 18 and never released it because I'm obviously not satisfied with it. And every time I read it, I'm a bit older, so it is cringier and cringier.
Have you tried to edit it?
I think the last time I tried to edit it was like 2 years ago or something. It's somewhere in my room, in a big box.
Pretty much.
It's just the whole thing printed off with loads of notes all over it.
For where the script of Heatwave is as well.
Where Heatwave is, where things like a couple of radio dramas I wrote again never got made. I really want to make this stuff as well, and sometimes it's a question of finding the right people to do it with.
It's hard.
You can't always go out alone. That's what I try to do with the podcast, which I've enjoyed doing the podcast series, but it has been quite difficult for some behind the scenes context to try and make sure people can fit within your time frame, but also you basically have to be sure that the conversation isn't going to be shit.
Yeah.
And like you're just going to run out of stuff to say halfway through. But no, it's been crazy and I absolutely love doing it.
Do you think you'd do some more?
I definitely want to do a second series. And next time go on, branch out a bit. At the moment they're just on YouTube. I want to, move on to hopefully. I don't like to make promises because I've done this in the past and I'm not always that reliable. There was stuff I had planned to do during this election that I didn't get around to doing because of, I also have a, full-time job and other stuff.
Yeah.
And other projects that I'm working on, and sometimes it's difficult to juggle all that stuff. So, what little free time I get, I sort of throw it into this. Yeah, we'll see where it goes. But I definitely want to do a second series. Possibly get some sponsors as well.
If anyone's listening,
try and monetize it a bit. I don't know, because this is maybe something that I want to do, and this has just been the test of.
It's like an experiment.
Exactly. So let me give you guys a bit of background, right? Tom. The reason that we chose Tom as the host for this week's episode is because Tom is thinking about doing his own podcast, probably inspired by myself. No doubt.
No.
So I thought it would be a good opportunity for you to have a go at hosting,
right, in
case you want to do it in the future. How do you think it's going, Tom?
Yeah, I think it's alright.
I feel I'm breaking the rule a bit and I'm stepping back into the host.
I think you've always been the host, to be fair. But I like to branch out on stuff like most about film.
Well, that's the thing. This is why I do this stuff. It doesn't necessarily have to go anywhere. I just want to see what I can do.
That's cool.
To get as big a sort of idea as possible of my skill set. Because I'm still not totally sure what I actually want to do.
Yeah, what do you see yourself doing in later life?
I don't know. Writing. I think it has to be around kind of writing, creating, things like this.
Films, books.
Spoken word. Exactly, just sort of creative stuff. Not too sure about, fine art and things like that. Probably not for me. Things like journalism, I think I could get into. I've written some pieces before, especially on the page, and done interviews with political candidates, and so maybe that's something I can do. I'll just have to see whether it goes anywhere. But at the same time, I want to see if I can, write screenplays for films or TV shows that I come up with. But yeah, I want to do as much as possible.
Has there been any major setbacks in your...
Yeah, I mean, for a while I suffered from quite a bad bout of depression. And, during that time, a lot of what got me through it was things like reading and writing. And, also drinking. But
probably not the best.
No, it wasn't.
Thing to do.
And it was during that time that I started reading a lot of philosophy. I think obviously I was drawn to that at a time when you're trying to work out if there is a purpose to your existence. And
we're talking about like old school, like Plato, Socrates.
We're talking about everything. So yes, you have the classic ones like Plato, Aristotle, and sort of move on to I got really into the Stoics, so people like Marcus Aurelius, like Seneca, and just I think it was in that I just found some of the most beautiful observations on life. Especially, I read a book, and it's on my shelf right now, called Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. So Marcus Aurelius was a Roman emperor known as the last of the 5 good kings. And he was, at his heart, a great sort of leader, but at the same time he was also this just such a passionate academic as well. And he wrote a sort of collection of thoughts and observations that he had on life. And Stoicism's kind of this belief of like, some part of it is very pragmatic in terms of your outlook. You accept that there are certain things that are just going to happen. You accept the often random nature of life, and so when bad things happen to you, you don't see it as something particularly aimed at you. You just see it as another part of the game. It was in that I started reading about things like things in Buddhism, about how life is actually chiefly suffering in many ways, or at least those are the most memorable sort of moments as well. And I'm not sure if I've gone into this on the podcast before. I may be repeating myself here, but it all essentially boils down to the meaning of life is the idea that life has meaning. How you can assign such importance to something so insignificant as human life in the cosmos.
It's tiny, isn't it? We're a grain of sand, really.
We're less than that. We are, but the atoms but an atom in a grain of sand. And you can either despair in that knowledge that we are insignificant, or you can turn it on its head and actually say, well, if you're able to, make something meaningful out of something meaningless, then ultimately you're kind of a god, or at least you have ascended this kind of this is the gift of being alive. We're essentially bending the universe to our will in some way because we're able to change its nature. Human beings are very powerful and we very much underplay this in terms of our levels of empathy. When we get around to that question of, is there a God? Well, what is God but the acclamation of everything, of the universe itself? If we view the universe as God, then we're all a part of it. We're all like pieces of this sort of grand cosmic jigsaw. We're all just pieces of a bigger thing, and that together, all of us together, and again, with even beyond the sort of concepts of time, so everything at once, past, present, and future, all together, is it forms this kind of, I guess you would call that God. God is the kind of lifespan of existence. So I think, personally, the religions of the world, no, I don't believe in their gods. If you were to ask me if I believed in divinity, then absolutely. Because we're all part of that. They say we're the same radiation that's from the Big Bang. All of us. We've literally come from the same thing. And we all
We'll go back into it as well when we die.
Well, exactly. But there's something really liberating about having these kind of ideas, because again, you can only really trust your senses, as Descartes said. I think, therefore I am.
Well, that was pretty deep.
Yeah, sorry.
Could you see yourself as a philosopher? A bit of a public speaker?
Kind of it depends, like what? No, not a full-time just philosopher.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone can have that job.
No, not anymore.
No. And I don't also necessarily agree with this notion that Plato has, that philosophers should rule the world. Because I think they'll forever just be fighting with each other. Or just questioning themselves and fighting with themselves.
Isn't that basic politics anyway?
That's basic politics right now, yeah. Thanks. No. I would, obviously, I'd love to talk to people about philosophy, and I could just talk for hours about philosophy. And I think this really needs to be on the curriculum. You need to get people to question the nature of things, and see things in different perspectives. So,
I think that's the hardest to get through to people right now.
Yeah,
they believe in something, and that's all they believe in. It's quite hard to open their minds
vehemently as well, and it's difficult for people like me because I have changed a lot in terms of my political
Definitely
view.
has,
yes. I used to, I'll be honest, I used to identify as very far left, probably. That's now, I consider myself more centre and libertarian, and ultimately I would like, less government and less regulation on things. And I'm not saying none, I'm just saying, but yeah, I mean, I don't, but the thing that gets to me is the viewpoints other people have, the ideas other people have about, I don't know, certain types of voter or certain types of party, of this kind of guilty by association thing. Oh, if you vote for the party I don't like, that makes you a bad person.
Yeah, exactly.
And this moral grandstanding needs to stop, because no one's really in the right. There's not a single
especially
political...
this election.
Exactly. There isn't the amount of people who have been asking me, even at the last minute, even today, who should I vote for?
Yeah.
And they have no clue.
Yeah.
And who could blame them? And it's the same with me. There isn't really... The Libertarian Party of the UK the UK Libertarian Party are actually standing in about 7 seats, I think, this election, but sadly not in my constituency. That's probably the closest party I would actually identify with. But, I don't get that option. So I'm stuck with 4 options, none of which are really that appealing.
Same, I mean...
And that's the same for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And I think something needs to change. We need to somehow move on from this. It is a lack of representation, ultimately. We have a system rigged for 2 parties. And there are benefits to having a first-past-the-post system. So the first-past-the-post system was developed to try to ensure that there is a stable government, so that one party gets a majority and can command, like that, and things flow quite simply. We've seen, however, there is apparently a point of diminishing returns on that. We've seen sort of more hung parliaments now. It's possible tonight that we will see another one. And that just brings us more uncertainty and probably more elections. And I'm not saying it's time for people to, you need to pick a side and, it's about, we need proper representation. So I'm not necessarily making an argument here for proportional representation. I do think that discussion needs to be had again. I don't think it was done properly last time in 2011. But we do need to talk about our representation and how our voices are actually heard in this country. And it's something that we're going to have to discuss. This is definitely a Brexit election. I think once the issue of Brexit is put to rest, or at least some part of it is over, or we're moving on in some capacity,
make it a lot easier.
We need to have a discussion at the next election about the whole system itself, in terms of, do we really need it in the way that it is? And we're going to have some discussions. We're going to have many frank discussions about the way we conduct ourselves, both in politics and outside of politics. There's overpopulation's a real thing. Real big thing now.
Definitely.
There are the population is going up.
7 billion now?
We are going to have more people in which we have to share this world with. And we're going to have to, make it work in some capacity if this is going to be sustainable. But the way to do that is to have open discussions with people and not be afraid that what you're going to say is going to meet with, violent opposition, or being shut down, or having your career or life destroyed by something that, just other people. And it's usually a very loud minority of people. But we need to have we need to be able to have proper conversations with each other. and not get so tribal.
I agree.
This One Nation Conservative government has been given a powerful new mandate.
This is obviously a very disappointing night for the Labour Party.
Tonight is terrible. It's horrendous. It's heartbreaking.
Jo Swinson has lost her seat in Dunbartonshire East to the Scottish National Party.
The most disastrous result for the Labour Party. The worst result since 1935.
The Conservatives on 368 seats and Labour way down on 191.
If this exit poll is anywhere near right, this result is a catastrophe for you, Jeremy Corbyn, and the Labour Party.
It's extremely, if it is anywhere near this.
Just anywhere near.
Anywhere near, you're right. This will be extremely disappointing for the party overall.
But certainly this exit poll is a devastating blow.
Commiserations to Jo Swinson. To lose her seat tonight, when she's led her party through this campaign, will be a bitter blow for her.
Corbyn was a disaster on the doorstep. Everyone knew that he couldn't lead the working class out of a paper bag. I want him out of the party. I want momentum gone. Go back to your student politics.
Jeremy Bernard Corbyn is duly elected to serve as Member of Parliament.
And I will not lead the party in any future general election campaign.
It is 6 minutes past 5 in the morning, and we are now in a position to say that this election of 2019 formally has been won by the Conservatives.
This election means that getting Brexit done is now the irrefutable, irresistible, unarguable decision of the British people.
Thanks everyone for listening to this series of StrangCast. Hope to be back with you in the new year for some great new podcasts with some amazing Colchester residents. Thanks very much for listening. Until next time.